Thank you for listening to the Supply Chain Doctor, where we strive to bring you new ideas from thought leaders and new solution concepts that may be flowing below your radar. Today, I'm with Tom Brouillette, a friend and a supply chain futurist. Tom is a longtime practitioner and a principal with Otis Supply Chain Consulting. You can find more about Tom by following him on his LinkedIn profile and watching some of his interviews on other YouTube channels. Tom, thank you for investing time with me again today.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. I enjoyed the last time.
Yeah, and speaking of the last time, Tom, we had you just a couple weeks ago, and you introduced the concept of the anti-fragile supply chain, and really how the older, original, low-cost concepts of supply chains made supply chains more brittle. They were very good at delivering what they wanted to deliver, but they couldn't change. You also spoke about the need to create an alternative name to supply chain, which I agree with. You use the term mesh. Maybe that's something we can build on as we talk today, Tom.
Yeah, it's the concept is to develop a network of service providers and suppliers within your supply chain or your supply network that can support needs relatively on demand. I mean, you can't just flip a switch, obviously. But the point here is to develop the capability to switch, as an example, from one supplier to another. There's a comparison that you have to. There's a cost to that, and I'd be lying if I said there wasn't a cost. There's a cost to that, but I would say that the cost of developing multiple suppliers for your products is much lower than the cost to your income and revenue stream. We're in an age now where if you lock up, if you freeze up and you don't deliver on your promise, that's the kiss of death. And the challenge today is companies have been lulled into a false sense of security by a stability point. You know, I used to kid around and say, well, you know the routine. Nobody ever got fired for bringing in IBM. And after I started analyzing and walking down this path of the anti-fragile supply network, supply chain mesh, I abridged it, or I changed that slightly. Nobody ever lost their job because they brought in an IBM, but they did lose their job when they had no inventory on the shelves during the peak season. That's kind of a timely thing, and we're in a transitional period right now where people are so used to. You have to remember, we've gone through 40 years of a single-minded drive to reduce costs. And the lowest cost provider, the lowest cost supplier, the lowest cost raw materials. And the result of that is that we've collapsed those areas. So raw materials, there's only one place that can supply many of these critical raw materials. The concept of the mesh, and I'll use a manufacturer, a supplier, let's say an apparel company. And the idea of the mesh is to analyze the suppliers that can supply your product, do an evaluation on them, review their product, make sure that they have the capacity to deliver on your demand, and then engage in a agreement, a contractual agreement, where you will purchase a certain amount of their product on an annual basis in order for them to meet your needs if you need to increase the volume at the drop of a hat, basically. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, I worked on a project that we called we dubbed the vendor performance system. And the idea where there was to go through and evaluate and rate all of your suppliers. And it would be based on key criteria, on time and full deliveries, quality of the product, did it meet our quality standards? You defined what you would do, what would happen if the quality did not meet the standards. And then we developed a chargeback program. So let's say somebody is supplying blue shirts and they're all in individual poly bags or on hangers. And one deliver you ordered blue shirts in poly bags and the blue shirts came on hangers. The blue shirts were fine. The packaging just needed to be changed. So you brought the blue shirts in, you opened them all up and you switched it from a poly bag to a hanger. This chargeback system had a rate for the work that was done, and then it added a penalty to that charge and charged the vendor back, and you just deducted it from future invoices to keep it, and it was an incentive. I am suggesting that we re-engage and expand that, and not just measure the quality of a supplier, but to identify backup, secondary, tertiary.
Mm-hmm.
I saw something interesting that Zara's or one of the fast forward fashioners, they have up to 6 or 7 suppliers for each individual product.
That's a lot of that's a lot of alternative and backup.
Isn't it? But if you think about it, the goal of this supply chain mesh is to be able to react to external disruptions. So I am in a location, let's say I'm in Europe, my company is in Europe, and I order all of my materials, all of my product from China, and it comes up through the Strait of Hormuz or the Suez Canal. And now is the perfect example. Well, this past couple of years were perfect examples, right? First, the Suez Canal gets hammered by a war, and now the Strait of Hormuz is hammered by war. So the effect is that I may be able to get my product iffy, right? And if I can get it shipped via an ocean freight, it's going to have to go around the Cape of Good Hope in Africa to get to me. There's no other way to get around. So you're either adding additional delays, you're adding complexities, you're adding fines and additional transportation costs. And what this mesh, the goal behind the mesh is that if one segment of your supply chain gets blocked, you can easily switch and flex to another segment.
Mm-hmm.
It requires taking a deep look and an analysis of all of the availability and the different types of problems. But the fact of the matter is that you have to start collecting information and using that information to help guide you in your decisions.
Yeah, and that kind of raises the importance of supplier relationship management.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
I know it's, a lot of people know what customer relationship management side is, but there's also a whole suite of product that focuses on the supplier side. So that's makes that a bit more relevant.
Yeah, and we've been spending years, with globalization, since globalization started, we've been spending years brutalizing the suppliers, shaking them like a piggy bank. And now we're trying to say, well, you've got to, the point here is to develop a relationship. It's interesting because what I'm talking about with the supply chain mesh is the same as a social network. If you think about Facebook, I'm able to connect to your friends and their friends and so on and so forth. It's not it's not a chain one to the other. It's just open direct connections across the entire network. And that's
Right.
what I'm talking about with the supply chain mesh.
Yeah, I like the concept, and I do still agree we have to change the name, but at least the implication on what the name means, because a
Yeah,
chain is a pull mentality, which is kind of what we want.
yeah, yeah,
It's also focuses on the weakest links and other things. But I read somebody on LinkedIn had a post that the name is wrong. That's all it was, and then obviously it went back to the theory of constraints and the goal and those
yeah.
things. It becomes much more critical to the success of your supply, a competitive supply chain, is the relationships you have with your carriers and your suppliers.
Yeah, you have to change. We for the past couple of years, we've been talking about we moved from a just-in-time inventory method to a just-in-case inventory method, but that doesn't address the underlying issue, right? Of the availability. How do you build your network that you can obtain the product at the best cost, not the lowest cost, the
Best
best
cost.
cost to meet the demand needs. I saw an interesting statistic that the just in case inventory is based on the delivery cycle. So, to keep it very simple, they're thinking about having inventory for at least 30 days in case there's any disruption. What I'm saying is that we can harvest a lot of capital out of there if we focus on the information to meet that and reduce delays. If we're reducing delays, we can reduce that inventory, the just in case inventory. And if you can reduce it by 60%, 30%, $500 million company probably has 100 million in just in case inventory. And if you can reduce that by 30%, that's what, 30 million? That's a lot. And that leads into my next concept of the earn as you burn model, where
Yeah.
you're focusing on a short 90-day release cycle of measurable business objectives. So the point is, I deliver a business objective or a requirement in 90 days, and I'm able to start measuring that. Did I get the ROI I anticipated out of it? And you harvest that ROI to pay for the next release cycle, to pay for the next release cycle. You're kind of self-funding, if you will. But it also gives you an opportunity to respond to changes in the environment. I changed this process and it impacted that process like this. If you wait for 3 years and you implement a sweeping big bang change and you suddenly identify 100 problems, think of the impact and the cost of going through and resolving each one of those things, because it's an iterative process. You're not going to fix everything and do a big bang of all the fixes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So why should you do a big bang of all the improvements, I guess is the point.
Yeah. Well, you said something earlier, Tom. It's a little bit tangential, but about metrics, I think, and it was interesting to me. I know back when just in time and keeping
Mm-hmm.
inventory volumes low had to do with, and I never thought about it, but the timing of the attention that was given to the issue. So the issue can be we have too much inventory on hand.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you would learn about that probably at the end of the quarter, end of the month, whatever, and you might be reprimanded for that then.
Yeah.
However, if you're ordering inventory, and this is the reason why there may be too much inventory. Just as a side note.
Yeah.
However, if you run out of inventory, you're not going to wait until the end of the month, end of the quarter to hear about that. You're going to hear about it right now, and that's
Exactly.
that's
That's
that's the challenge. So people would tend to over order rather than under order. So anyhow, that was
and that gets to another concept I discussed, was the fragility tax. So the fragility tax, the easiest way to look at that, the fragility tax is let's just think of an example, an easy example. It's the cost of your expedited shipments. I have a delay on this blue shirt on hangars, right? I can't get it out of the country. It's stuck on a boat in the middle of the ocean waiting for some approval. So what I do is I go to the manufacturer, I go to the factory that made the blue shirt. I order another another 30 days or 60 days worth of blue shirts. I bring them together and then I got to air freight them.
Mm-hmm.
So the fragility tax is the cost of that air freight that I pay out of pocket, kind of a deal.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes, well, that gets into another concept of the carrying cost. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's and I used to do this as an example with students that were studying, the cost of supply chains,
Mm-hmm.
where if you expedite something, maybe there's $1,000 expedite fee, just as an example, as opposed to 100.
Right.
But you're not factoring in the cost of carrying that inventory a month or 2 months on the water, as opposed to 2 days in the air. Maybe
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's so it depends a lot on your carrying cost concepts. So fragility tax could be related to carrying cost.
It
That makes
is.
sense.
It
Yeah.
is. It's all related to that. And it's the result of a big cause of this is the focus on visibility. I need to be able to see things and not on actionability. Ocean carrier Maersk is you're shipping 150 containers on a Maersk vessel. There's a delay. Those 150 containers are delayed. Maersk may send a message to the coordinator. The coordinator gets that message 24 hours later. It has to go through their system to process that information, and then it generates another message to send to your system 24 hours later. So now you're 48 hours behind, and the only recourse you have is to pay for the additional shipment cost. They add a factor to the containers that they're shipping, and you've got to deal with any type of delays at the port. You've got to coordinate your shipment, your pickup at the port, and. So it turns into this long chain of events that you've got to address. And if you're already acting at a 48-hour to 72-hour delay, you're kind of screwed. You're going to be paying storage fees. You're going to be paying demurrage fees. You're going to be paying penalties to the humpers that bring your product from the port. You're gonna have to expedite the shipments from the port.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you have any problems with customs, you open up a whole new can of worms. So technically you have their visibility. The thing you have to be careful of is the timeliness. People will say near real time. Well, that's a rather nebulous term, isn't it?
Yeah, I've always heard real time's the definition of the recipient. I mean, it can be one day
Exactly.
or a week can be fast enough. It's just all relative.
Exactly. But if you eliminate the hops and the messages and the batch processing, the overnight processing and all of that, you can react to the messages that are being sent by the carrier at the
Mm-hmm.
edge of the chain, and you can act on that within 10 minutes.
Well, that gets into connectivity then, because, and it was, as we talked about the last show, the digital supply chain network, where the
Yeah.
carriers are connected to the actual sales orders and the suppliers, so everybody sees if there's going to be a delay in pickup, a delay in delivery, how
Mm-hmm.
that's going to impact your warehouse, and that gets kind of back into visibility and actionability as well. We have a lot of abilities in these terms that we're
Yeah.
using.
Yeah.
Scalability.
I worked with somebody who had a term for all of the additional the ilities.
Abilities, yes. So I know you've written some white papers on expanding upon these concepts. Are we getting
Mm-hmm.
close? Is that what we wanted to talk about today, and or can we plan for that in the future?
The point of today's conversation is to bring out the concept, to
Yeah.
mention it,
Yeah. Keep building
right?
on.
And this is how this is the challenge that we're trying
Okay.
to address. Hopefully the conversation resonates with people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm running into this problem, and how much does it cost to do this? When you start to think about it, it's mind-boggling. The cost for stability is enough to pay for the anti-fragile supply chain network probably 5 times over.
And that talks about you also reintroduced earn as you burn concept. I like the
Mhm.
idea of the fragility tax because there is a lot of cost to not being able to change.
If we talk about let's plan the next session to talk about the stability trap.
Because I know you've got a lot of these ideas written down.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm going to follow your train of
As a
thought. So,
tagline, I love the idea that stability is a great concept, but what do you get from the stability that these legacy monolith organizations promise? At the end of the quarter, you get a beautiful, very professional PowerPoint slide that says you were charged, $500,000 for all of these overage fees. Have a nice day.
and stability in today's market is, I don't even know if it's there. I mean, you might have it in your long term buy every day CPG or consumable. But
Yeah.
other stuff, you just look at AI. I mean, it's changing the markets every 6 months, maybe a month. I don't know the way that.
Yeah. The AI strategy is it would be another, is a whole different topic. People can't wrap their head around the concept of an anti-fragile supply chain network. In all of the disruption that's occurring, it's very comforting to be able to say, I have a stable transportation,
Mhm.
even though stable is not such an accurate phrase, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
if you think about it, stable kind of implies lack of agility, which is an
Yeah,
anti fragile supply chain. So
yeah,
we're kind of fighting against ourselves if that's the case. If we want to be stable, but we want to be anti fragile, there's a competitive factors there at play.
exactly. It's a major change in the thought process. Think of it this way. When you look at one of the things that this earn as you burn focuses on is business and getting the business engaged. And one of the reasons for that was that if the business was not engaged in a transformation initiative, the failure rate went up to like 90%. That is, in my opinion, again, a legacy holdover. It was very easy for somebody to say, "Oh, it's a technology project." And I don't know any. It used to be a badge of honor, right? I don't know anything about technology. It's an IT project. It's a
Mm-hmm.
technical project. But that was fair to everybody when you really come down to it. And my drive now is the focus on a business transformation initiative that's supported by technology. And this implies that the business owns it. Technology is an important part,
Sure.
but it's meeting the business objectives.
Yeah, and it's always been that way. I mean, you've always tried to engage with the business or the operators or the managers, and then rather than make it an IT initiative, but now it's kind of blending.
It's blurred.
It's
Exactly.
blurred.
It's
Good.
blurred, but you have to understand and you have to come to an agreement within your organization that this is what the business side is responsible for, and this is what the technology side is responsible for, and how do we work together and collaborate. There's no reason to have technology or a supply chain if the company isn't making money,
Reminds me
right?
of the dot com craze days, Tom, when everybody was looking for money. They said, "I don't care if we lose a nickel per order, we'll make up for it in volume." So
It will make up for it in volume. Yeah,
how can you do
yeah.
it? It's a the accounting math doesn't change, although AI has an influence. Well, Tom, do you have any final thoughts for today? I would think it would be a good idea to kind of build on the theme of your white papers and your track that line
Yeah.
of thought.
You know what? It's a journey because when I got to the point that I'm at now in this strategic direction, because I moved from one concept to another. I started off with visibility, and then I realized,
Mhm.
well, what the hell good is visibility if I can't do anything with it?
Yes.
And then how do I know what to do with it? Right? Then you get into the analysis and the scenario planning and evaluation. And then the next logical step is the doer. That's
Yeah.
where the agentic AI comes into play. But
Yep.
that's a scary concept that you have to be able to validate and make people comfortable with.
Yeah. Well, we always used to, I mean, you and I came from a similar place, but we would say that you can let the AI make the decision, make the change, or it'll suggest the change, and then still have to have somebody to approve the change. So it just depends on where you are as an organization to how much you want AI to influence the supply chain.
Exactly.
Well, that's good, Tom. I appreciate your time again today. I'll talk to the audience directly here by thanking them for investing a part of their day, listening to the Supply Chain Doctor, again, where we strive to bring you new ideas from thought leaders such as Tom and new solution concepts that may be flying below your radar. Please subscribe or like the content or the channel and let us know what other supply chain topics you'd like to explore. And remember, when I'm not bringing you great learning content around supply chain in general, I'm helping companies improve their warehouse performance. So if you have a warehouse, DC, or fulfillment center, whatever you want to call it, and you think it could be better, please give me a shout. And thanks for listening.